it was a good one. And as it is Thursday, we look forward to looking at what is happening in the world of news. The conversation on matters BBI is still on, but today we make it a little bit special, more or less like a mini baraza, and we discuss this conversation on whether indeed we should have members of parliament, MCAs, or generally elected members or elected officials having a degree as would be stipulated. And I mean, it's something that has raised lots and lots of heated debate across all divides at a point when we are almost getting into an election, and IEBC declaring that it is important for them to have degrees as of course stipulated by law, but many are coming out to challenge the same based on numerous reasons. And I will be taking you through the procedures as to how we arrived at this fact that we should be having representing or elected members, our members who seek to vie for elected posts, making sure that they have degrees. And we'll be looking at all the nitty-gritty details historically coming to this particular point where we're having this conversation. Remember, it is a conversation that is there, but started way before the 2010 Constitution. I mean, it's a debate that started back then, and there's been reasons and numerous reasons why this has not been put to practice. And up until today, what way forward? We're having individuals who are of the view that such should be the case, and others who would want to counter the same. So make sure that you keep it right here. We just need to understand whether a degree or maybe education, so to speak, is a requirement or an enhancer of leadership. And therefore, as we discuss that, we also look at what is playing out in other countries, the likes of Uganda, the likes of United Kingdom, the likes of Tanzania, the likes of Ghana, and so much more. Is it the case for them? Make sure that you stay tuned, and you also give us your view on the same hashtag Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela TV47K. It's Thursday, and therefore also later on before we close the program, that is at around 8:30 a.m. all the way to 9, we'll be having the gym sessions just to make sure that we all look good. And so keep it right here as we kickstart, but importantly be part of the discussion. And of course the broadcast begins right now as we first look at what the papers have to say. The Standard newspaper, the People Daily, and the Daily Nation. Here we are, the Daily Nation, the biggest story, or what it is that has been captured on the front page. Remember, it's all about BBI, like I started by saying, and the parties which successfully petitioned the High Court to nullify BBI law review plans will actually defend their position, and that is set for today. That is after the others that were representing President Uhuru Kenyatta, the proponents of the BBI, also weighed in their sentiments on this particular, as they promoted or they spoke of what it is that they would want to front to make sure that they counter or they challenge what it is that the High Court declared. And the arguments then stand on fact that promoters of Building Bridges initiative made a final push, that is in their bid to make sure that they overturn the ruling that was set by the High Court, which derailed the constitutional amendment campaign or the process. And now the lawyers' argument was that President Kenyatta had been condemned and heard, and that contrary to the High Court's finding, the popular initiative had been stated or started by two politicians and not the head of state. It's going to be interesting to watch. A story captured on page 4 and 5, and it is actually a story that is captured across. The Standard newspaper speaks of the very same thing. We aren't promoters of the BBI. That is President Uhuru Kenyatta and Right Honorable Raila Odinga argue so. And brains behind the Building Bridges initiative are Suna East Member of Parliament, and that is Junet Mohammed, and former Dagoretti Member of Parliament Dennis Waweru, and not the President and the former Prime Minister. That is what the court was told as appeal hearing got to day 2, and now it's now day 3. And the story captured on page 4 and 5, as of course expected. It should end tomorrow, and then we can now get to know what will be the deliberations of the court, and after how long then they are able to give us their findings. The same also has been captured, as I said, on the People Daily. Uhuru Raila not promoters of the BBI, and just at a glance, IBC on matters IBC, former Attorney General Muigai defended the commission, saying that the lack of quorum issue did not exist in law. Remember also, as this was quashed at the level of the High Court, the aspect of the quorum and the formation of IBC was one of the key things that was looked at. And on the aspect of Uhuru, his advocate argued that President could not have responded to the suit because he was not served. And also highlight number 3 on Right Honorable Raila Odinga, his lawyer said that though President did not initiate BBI, nothing stops him from promoting popular initiative. And of course, the conversation is on. We all are eagerly waiting to see what then will be the deliberation of the Court of Appeal. Lawyer says that while the two supported the initiative, the people pushing the drive were Junet Mohammed and former Member of Parliament Dennis Waweru, as captured on page 4 and 5. Let's go back to the Daily Nation and look at the other stories that have been captured on matter education. Can't pay, won't pay. This, of course, according to TSC, where it says it has no funds for teachers' salary increase. And remember, the debate is on the unions also crying foul as to this, but also citing, this commission citing that aspect of what was declared by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, that in 2 years there's not going to be any review upward for any civil servants, and such also should be applicable to the teachers. And it's a conversation that is still on. Remember, it's for the longest of time now that they've been pushing for the CBA, something that has not been implemented, and therefore leaving teachers, at a point where they are struggling, and as they keep complaining that the government is not catering for, of course, their needs, and in most cases issuing threats of going out there to demonstrate, to boycott the processes, or not even going to class. The tax burden, airtime and internet costs expected to increase as members of parliament propose higher taxes. A story captured on page 12. I don't know how Kenyans will receive this, but then such has been the argument, because such would be looked at as, luxurious aspects, but a time where most of the Kenyans are conducting their businesses online, and a majority of them are hugely, using the airtimes and their phones. It is something that will certainly raise alarm and worry. It's a story captured on page 12, and we can as well look at the same later as we continue. Derito Gachagua in trouble over 12 billion tenders, and detectives say they have finalized investigations into tenders involving companies associated to Madeira Member of Parliament Rigathi Gachagua. Did I say Derito? How? Okay. Putting the lawmaker in trouble over 12 billion, that is said to have passed through his accounts. And of course, the numbers associated, or the firms associated with the Member of Parliament, and the transactions and those of his proxies has reached about 40. Most of the transfers end up in companies known as Wamunyoro, that is Wamunyoro Investments Limited, where Mr. Gachagua and his wife, Pastor Dorcas Wanjiku, are the only shareholders. It's captured on page 10, and we'll be looking at that, or proceedings of the same, to keep you up to speed. Man tells court how he lost house and land to his ex-wife. Interesting one. And on matter sports, SportPesa to pay rugby union about 417 million over botched deal. Order arising from arbitration that is likely to open the doors for another sports federation and teams to pursue the betting giant for sponsorship money, as captured on page 10. And matters crime, gangsters abduct trader 45, who is 45 years actually, in broad daylight. Businessman was grabbed by 3 men at around 5:30 p.m. in the heart of Nyeri town and bundled into a station wagon bearing parastatal number plates. A story captured on page 11, and everyone was just looking at that. You've seen the video making rounds on social media, and the biggest question is just what is happening, and especially on matters security, and what happens to us being our brother's keeper. Away from it, and yes, other stories on the People Daily. Relief as Kenya, US resolves stalemate on ARVs. You know that this has been there for the longest of time, and we've even seen people going out there on streets to demonstrate on the same, because people with HIV and AIDS have not been able to access or have not been able to get the medicine they should consume, a majority, on a daily basis, making their situation, dire. And of course, their health situation also has not been so rosy, but certainly good news right there. And how ministry lost 1.8 billion to non-existent students, and about 26.8 million is the amount disbursed to 5 schools whose existence was in doubt since registration certificates, a Teachers Service Commission, appointment letters and posting of principals, boards of management minutes approving opening of bank accounts and other documents required under the State Department for Early Learning and Basic Education annual guidelines on disbursement of free-day secondary education funds were not provided. That is why it has been declared that these were non-existent students. It is a story captured on page 2 on matters grabbed, and the Auditor General Nancy Gathungu and her office, of course, looking into that, more details of the same that needs to be followed on. We'll be having our education's reporters also following up on this to make sure that we are up on the loop. Matiang'i puts hate mongers on notice. That is at a point where they argue that the government is ready to deal with the 20, and not necessarily deal, let's not use the word deal, to make sure that at least we have a free and fair process, and making sure that their guards are up on matters security when we get to the general election, that is 2022. They say that they're not going to gag anything, including the internet, but those who are going to misuse these platforms then will have to face the ruthless side of the law. And that is a story captured on page 8, and also a reaction to what the DPP also had spoken about. And that is in regards to matters BBI, as captured there is the biggest story and on the front page, and so much more. Briefly on what the Standard newspaper has, more or less the same story. We aren't promoters of BBI, Uhuru Raila say that, and of course this through their lawyers, as the conversation on the Court of Appeal is on as to whether the BBI sails through or not. On that one, state ready for next year's poll, says Matiang'i. The government has set up adequate measures to make sure that they curb potential violence in the run-up to and after the 2022 general election, according to Interior Cabinet Secretary, that is Fred Matiang'i, and it's a story that has been expounded on page 10 of the Standard newspaper. Money trail inside the lavish lifestyle of Tekra and Omar. The lives of Keroche's Tekra Muigai and boyfriend Omar Lali were colorful, and like any other lovers, they had good and bad times. And of course, during this time, lots of money flowed and oiled the relationship, according to the mother of Tekra, who speaks of about 1.2 million shillings, the amount of money that Tekra Muigai transferred to Omar Lali's account within a period of about 8 months, in addition to gifts, drinks, and holiday trips, as of course would be captured even as the case as to what really transpired until Tekra lost her life is still on. 50,000 is the amount of shillings that Tekra and Omar Lali could spend in a bar in one night. Pretty much unfortunate, as they would say. Money is nice, but sometimes some of these things then you just question so much. The case is still on. Well, in the quest for justice, we can only hope that they'd be able to get answers. Why vasectomy uptake is low, and although medical experts consider vasectomy as the easiest, safest, and most effective family planning method, only about 3% of men in the world have had this procedure done. And that is a story captured on page 14. As women would complain, in most cases the men will not bear the brunt of getting the family planning aspect, in just trying to manage that is the number of family members that they wish to have. It is only left to be a burden to the women. Probably informs the reason why most of the men will not go for the vasectomy process. Members of Parliament made millions from fictitious mileage claims. You know very well that they've been complaining that they do not get mileage as expected. This is a story captured on page 8, but then from this report, it is interesting to know that, well, it has become a money-minting affair. And Gisheru case, on Mata's Gisheru case, we know this is the ICC, and Karim Khan officially withdraws. A story captured on page 7. We wait to see then what direction that case takes. This pertains to the post-election violence conversation in the country that got President Uhuru Kenyatta and his Deputy President William Ruto not facing it so easy at the level of the ICC. And I mean, more is said to be revived in regards to the same, as lawyer Gisheru at some point in time also proceeded to, speak to the ICC, and also coming out to try and give some damning revelations in regards to that particular case. So it's a conversation that will be interesting to watch. We'll also be following to keep you up to tabs. Kenyans innovate for lack of jobs. Indeed, it's been so tough, especially at this COVID-19 period, unprecedented times and tough times, most of the people losing their jobs, and therefore majority have resorted to getting or trying to be a bit innovative so that they can cushion themselves and also make sure that they are able to stay afloat. And we leave the papers at that. Briefly look at what my team has prepared. As the Independent Electoral and the Boundaries Commission, that is IEBC, and President Uhuru Kenyatta lawyers appeared before the 7-judge bench, that is of the Court of Appeal, to challenge the High Court decision that nullified the BBI constitutional amendment process. As the IEBC argued that the High Court overreached its jurisdiction by issuing an advisory on the BBI process, President Kenyatta's team argued that the BBI popularization was done by SIGNET Mohammed and Dennis Waweru and not President Kenyatta and his handshake counterpart, Right Honorable Raila Odinga.
In that affidavit,
as IEBC's and President Uhuru Kenyatta's lawyers argued their appeal on the contentious issues in the 13th May High Court ruling, Tuesday's concerns of the initiator of the BBI constitutional amendment process and President Kenyatta's role in the amendment bill featured prominently in the Court of Appeal hearing.
Letter from the IEBC
with the BBI legal team revealing that former Dagoretti South Member of Parliament Dennis Waweru and Suna East legislator SIGNET Mohammed were the official promoters of the bill and not President Kenyatta, further raising eyebrows on the infamous BBI ruling.
My Lord, we wish to submit on this that against all evidence which was not controverted, that the promoters of this initiative was Honorable Dennis Waweru and Honorable SIGNET Mohammed. The court insists on finding that His Excellency President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta was the promoter of this initiative.
According to IEBC, the High Court erred in law by giving an advisory on the BBI bill, a role constitutionally preserved for the Supreme Court.
There is nothing in the Constitution of Kenya 2010 that said you can come to court if you have no nexus with the dispute, if you have no standing, if there is no cause of action. You can write a big petition, throw it to the court and say, please help us because we are very annoyed with the action of the chief. That is not the law of Kenya.
Since you are not suing anyone, it means you are seeking the advice of the court. Can you approach the Superior Court, the High Court, for an advisory opinion? My lords, our constitution does not allow that. You can only go to the Supreme Court, and there lies the difficulty.
However, the lawyers had a difficult time convincing the 7-judge bench that the electoral body had fulfilled the due process in the BBI signature verification exercise.
It is to be noted that there were over 4 million signatures. Not a single person, despite the publication by ABC, came out to complain that my name was put there erroneously.
Counsel,
yes, my lord.
Please assist me. You see, it's my business to understand this thing. And I want to know, how is that process a verification, other than just having the numbers and perhaps ID numbers which are easy to get from IEBC, from the voters register? How does one verify that those are actually supporters.
My lords and my ladies, Section 2 of the Elections Act defines biometric to mean the unique identifiers or attributes including fingerprints, hand geometry, earlobe geometry, retina and iris patterns, voice waves, DNA, and signatures. It is a fairly broad definition. Now, permit me to look at, just so that I complete that part, that is how then to apply for registration. There's need to have the biometric data and details set out in Form A to the schedule. Again, this is law.
My Lord, the learned judges of the Superior Court expended quite some considerable effort in unpacking the phrase verification of signatures. My Lord, that phrase does not exist anywhere in the Constitution. What is in the Constitution, my Lord, is a phrase which reads as follows: verification, quote unquote, verification that the initiative is supported, and it continues, and it ends with voters.
President Kenyatta's team, on the other hand, came gun blazing at the High Court judges to present 17 grounds of appeal. In their 4-point argument, Kenyatta's lawyers claimed that the president, who according to the High Court can be sued at a personal level, was not given a fair hearing, claiming that the court erred in law by hearing a matter that was determined by a court of similar status, and that the president did not contravene Article 73(1)(a) of the Constitution on the responsibilities of leadership.
So we'll adjourn now.
The recruitment of 4 commissioners at the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission (IEBC) picked up pace, that is on Wednesday, following a day-long psychometric test administered on them. And of course, these are the 36 shortlisted applicants. Well, the test that seeks to evaluate applicants' cognitive ability and mental agility comes ahead of July's oral interviews, from which 4 people will be picked to fill up at the position of the vacancies at the electoral body top race, as David Muthoka tells us.
Wednesday morning at the Kenyatta International Convention Center, one by one, all 36 applicants shortlisted in the quest to fill the 4 vacant commissioner positions at the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission trickled in. The 36, who for the first time sat in the same room, were subjected to a psychometric test that culminated in a case study test, with the Dr. Elizabeth Muli-led IEBC selection panel keen on separating the wheat from the chaff.
Psychometrics have been used world over as best practice in adding to the robustness of the selection process.
According to the panel, the tests will further scrutinize an applicant's cognitive skills, behavioral preferences, motivational interests, and emotional intelligence, and will set the foundation for the final stage in the recruitment process.
That all candidates who shall undertake the psychometric test shall proceed to the oral interviews, which shall be held between the 7th and 22nd of July 2021.
Among those interested in filling the shoes of former IEBC commissioners Roslyn Akombe, Margaret Mwachanya, Connie Nkatha, and Paul Kurgat include Environment CS Keriako Tobiko's sister Naisiae Tobiko, Kenya's ambassador to Zimbabwe Lucy Jebet Chelimo, Kenya's deputy permanent representative to the UN Koki Muli, former commissioner at the Public Service Salim Demo, former Kenya National Commission on Human Rights chairpersons Florence Jako and Kagwiri Mbogori, and former Gwasi lawmaker Felix Nyauchi. The 36 were shortlisted from a total of more than 600 applicants who are eyeing the top seats at the electoral body. The youngest to face the IEBC selection panel one-on-one next month is a 23-year-old applicant, while the oldest is 73 years old. This comes at a time when the IEBC is in a race against time to prepare for next year's polls, as the success of its itinerary hinges on the attainment of a quorum of at least 5 commissioners. The body has 3 commissioners left, among them IEBC Chair Wafula Chebukati, Boya Molu and Abdi Gulie, as the country braces for another politically decisive moment that is barely 13 months away. After undergoing a day-long psychometric test here at the KICC, the 36 applicants interested in filling the 4 vacancies at the IEBC commissioner level now face one more hurdle: oral interviews that have been slated for next month. Now, a process that began with over 600 applicants has since narrowed down and will continue to do so, with all eyes trained and fingers crossed on who will make it to the ultimate 4. David Mudhoka, TV47 at the KICC, Nairobi.
Thanks, David. Now, the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government, Fred Matiang'i, has announced that the government does not intend to shut down internet services or trample on the rights of Kenyans, that is during the 2022 general elections. At the same time, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, NCIC, wants the judiciary to establish a special court to deal with the hate speech and incitement to violence cases, as Mwangi Minor reports.
Muliona tukikula tear gas. Na mnajua napenda kuongea, lakini saa hizi hata sauti imepotea kwa sababu ya tear gas.
As the country warms up for the general elections slated for August next year, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, NCIC, has raised a red flag on possible cases of violence, incitement to violence, hate speech and warmongering. Speaking during the launch of NCIC's strategic plan for the years 2020 to 2025 that also charts a roadmap to peaceful 2022 elections, Interior CS Dr. Fred Matiang'i has announced that the government will not trample on the rights of Kenyans to express themselves, but state organs will be quick to enforce and uphold the rule of law. This with regard to the use of internet before, during and after the general elections.
We are a mature country. We are not going to do some of those things that you hear people do in some funny places on earth, like turning off the internet or the Twitter and so on. No, because Kenyans are disciplined people and we believe they are going to be. But of course that does not mean that we are not ready to enforce responsibility and call people to account. We have sufficient laws, we have solid institutions, evidenced by our own judiciary. We have solid institutions in this country and we are now ready to play our part collaboratively with others to ensure that our country goes through this exercise very peacefully.
NCIC, through its chair, Dr. Samuel Kobia, has requested the judiciary to consider setting up special courts to expedite hate speech and incitement cases. Kobia says most of the cases they have been presenting to court have not been resolved due to backlog.
If it is possible to set up special courts to deal with the cases that are, as I say, hate mongers, those who incite violence, etc. We have many that are now pending in court.
On her part, Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu has urged the Commission to do their work properly and present solid cases to court, arguing that no convictions will be made without concrete evidence.
And so please do your work appropriately. Anything less than cogent evidence will not suffice, and we shall not condemn people unheard.
She also retaliated the judiciary's commitment to maintain social cohesion through upholding the rule of law. Mwilu says the judiciary will not be the weak link during the general elections. She has announced that all electoral disputes will be resolved within the 6 months timeline.
We shall deliver justice timeously. We have done so in the past. The electoral disputes have a time frame of 6 months. We shall do no less in resolving warmongering
tendencies during the period.
Government organs and institutions have been asked to work together to maintain public confidence as well as ensure there is capacity building for a peaceful general elections. Mwangi Maina, TV47, Nairobi.
The Jubilee Party is open to talks with all political parties, including Deputy President William Ruto's linked UDA. National Assembly Majority Leader Amos Kimunya says the party is still in talks with ODM for a 2022 pre-election pact. He spoke to Elizabeth Matuko.
The ruling Jubilee Party has experienced a fallout within its members following the formation of Deputy President William Ruto's linked UDA party. National Assembly Majority Leader Dr. Amos Kimunya, however, says the party is intact despite the political standoffs.
Wengine wanasema wanataka kujiondoa. Wakiwaambia basi endeni, hawataki kuondoka. Ya? Na ndio nasema Jubilee kama ingekuwa ina tatizo, hawa vyama vyote waliungana 2012 2015 2016 hivi vyama vyote vilikuja pamoja ndio kuunda chama kabisa ya Jubilee baada ya kuwa ni coalition, ingekuwa vimejiondoa, lakini wameingia ndani, bado wanakatalia ndani.
The party has been planning to sign a pre-election coalition deal with Raila Odinga's Orange Democratic Movement. The pre-election deal is expected to translate into the formation of political machine that will take on Deputy President William Ruto. However, Kimunya says the party is open to talks with UDA party as well.
Inakuwa ni mazungumzo baina ya Jubilee ODM, Jubilee Wiper, Jubilee UDA. Hata kama ya Jubilee na UDA ni kumfaragano kidogo, lakini tunazungumza. Lakini kwa sasa ile kazi inafanyika. Si Jubilee, tuna rais, tuna deputy. So tunafanya makazi.
Jubilee is already facing stiff competition from UDA in Kiambaa in the upcoming by-election.
Kwa ujao watu watafikiria wanataka kuelekea wapi. Kwa hivyo watu wasichanganye siasa ya Kiambaa ya kukamilisha kipindi cha Koinange na siasa ya mwaka ujao na mwelekeo watu watataka kuelekea. Mimi nina matumaini makubwa sana kwamba Kiambaa atakayekuwa mbunge tarehe 15 atakuwa Jubilee.
The Kipipiri lawmaker father says that President Uhuru Kenyatta is still the Mount Kenya region's kingpin despite the recent coronation of National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi.
Akaja Murang'a, wazee wakasema pia hata wao wamembariki kuwa anaweza kuwa msemaji wa Mount Kenya. Na nafikiri ile ileta utata kidogo, ni baadhi ya wale wengine hawakuweko walisema sasa si Sagana tulisema msemaji wa Mount Kenya ni Rais Kenyatta na hatujarudi Sagana, si tugoje mpaka turudi Sagana ndio tujue sasa huyu tumemfuta tumemleta mwingine ama ni wote wawili, mmoja ni assistant ama ni joint spokesman. Sababu pia hata mimi nikizungumza nikienda Nyandarua nasema mimi ni asema kwa niaba ya watu wa Mount Kenya.
Elizabeth Mutuko, TV47 Nairobi.
Now, the national counties, or the national taxation in counties, that is on matters double taxation, and the national county governments have resolved to restrict charges of the county of origin of traders from numerous fees currently believed or being levied. This is or aimed at eliminating double taxation to traders. This was agreed during a consultative forum between the Council of Governors and the National Development Implementation and Communication Committee. Let's take a look at that.
We have agreed on issues related to the delayed payment of funds to the counties, and we have come with the way forward. And for the first time, the Treasury has done its best, especially this month. And now is a question of implementing the funds they have given us up to May, and we're happy with that. And also, we have agreed on issues related to double taxation. We should not be taxing our people, making trading expensive, and we have come up with very, very critical solutions.
For the first time since devolution started, we have now agreed that we do away with double taxation. You know, Kenyan private sector players have been complaining that they get taxed several times as they move goods across the country. We have agreed that we are going to come up with a final agreement and framework that will ensure that the goods are taxed at the origin. And people don't have to be taxed if you are carrying fresh food from Nyandarua. You don't have to pay taxes in Nairobi and Taita Taveta as you take your fresh produce to the market in Mombasa, because this has been affecting our people.
Well, the majority of Kenyans and some foreigners required to file the tax returns have been on the rush to meet the deadline, that is yesterday. And of course, cyber cafe operators had a busy day dealing with the latecomers waiting to beat the deadline, as it emerges that majority do not understand what filing the tax returns means. Now, this despite a 6-month window allowed to file tax returns for the year 2020. KRA online services experienced intermittent downtimes, and due to the huge number of online transactions by last-minute rushes. Now, let's take a look at that.
Yaani mimi nafurahi kutekeleza yale ambayo taratibu zimewekwa na nchi na watu mbalimbali katika jamii. Kwa hiyo ninakuwa huru ninapofanya hilo. Muda umenitosha, lakini sasa mara nyingine kwa ajili ya shughuli mbalimbali unajisahau.
Nilikuwa nimeenda kurepresent Kenya kwa michezo ya cycling, ya paracycling world champion kule Portugal na Belgium. Sasa wakati nilirudi huko nilijaribu kufungua elikata. Nikafikiria kirudi nyumbani itafunguka, ningesema ndio naona nang'ang'ana leo nisipigwe penalty. On behalf of disability wengine, at least watupatie muda, watu kama sisi kitambo, utoke mahali umetoka utafute cyber ile iko friendly, inakuwa ni ngumu.
Ukiona vizuri kujenga kaunti naye ni sawa kabisa, lakini ni njaa ndio inatumisha, hakuna venye tunaweza lipa hata tax.
If government can put in a strategy or can find a way of reaching us where we are, because we are finding it difficult kutoka hapa uko na customer unaenda kwa KRA tena unapata line ndefu.
From 1st of January you're able to file your return for the previous year. So I think most people are not aware of that. That's why we have this backlog. Like right now I cannot log in because the system is so jammed. I cannot help anyone because everyone is waiting for today. Yet it's something could have all done right from January.
For the last 5 months, the system has been so well, so good. Clients respond very well on time. We file for them, we give them the confirmation. Though today I've been getting some flow of clients who wants to come and file their returns. Unfortunately, the system has been down.
Welcome now. Yes, welcome back, because we are getting to the discussion. That's the reason why actually I said welcome back. And I already have some of my guests with me. Others will be joining us virtually, others will be in this studio, and others will be in a different studio. Remember, we say it's more or less like a mini baraza as we ponder on this conversation on whether elected members of parliament or elected officials should have or should hold a degree. Well, it's a conversation that has raised lots of concern. Let's just briefly look at what played out until we got to this particular point. This started way back before, the promulgation of the current constitution. That is 10 years into the making of the 2010 constitution. We, like have said, the conversation conversation was triggered way before, and those who are working on the constitutional changes were the ones who actually raised this as part of an amendment, and they said, let's put this as part of the amendments to make sure that at least we have all elected officials, even before they get to run, should be having degrees. In Naivasha, though, this was, more or less like a heated debate on whether indeed it should be pushed to being law or not. They agreed that indeed degrees will only be for presidents, for deputy presidents, for governors, and for deputy governors. And for members of parliament and, MCAs, the agreement was that such would be agreed at the level of parliament, or should be decided at the level of parliament. And then, this brought forth the conversation, Article 99, that gives parliament mandate to decide on minimum requirements. So 2011, then parliament passed the law that members of parliament and MCAs should have degrees, but it was not assented to law. Well, this is because members of parliament again lobbied to the then president, that is President Stanley Kibaki, and of course the conversation was that a majority of members of parliament then did not have degrees, and therefore if such was to be assented to law, it would mean that they would be voted out, and so he considered that did not assent the same to law. Come 2016, the 11th Parliament then raised the issue again, that those who are oversighting governors cannot be, individuals that do not have degrees, yet governors themselves have degrees. It's been a conversation that has been heated. Another issue was that the fact that, of course, the aspect of leadership, does it require paperwork? Does it require a degree for one to be a good leader, or it is simply an assistance to make sure that at least as leaders you are competent? It is a conversation that is still on. Fast forward to 9th January 2017. And an amendment was done on Section 22 of the election laws, that is with a requirement of degree. President ascended it to law. To a short time, of course, it appeared, because then it was somewhere in January and we were headed to an election somewhere in August. So the conversation, was there again, that was such a short time to allow these individuals to go and get their degrees, and therefore they considered, or they reconsidered, and they all agreed in unison that this is going to be applicable in the next now or subsequent election that now should be 2022. And here we are again, concerns are up as to one, the calendar of education we've all evidently seen has been altered by matters COVID-19, and therefore a majority had gotten back to school to at least make sure that by the time it's 2022 they'll have gotten their degrees, and therefore they would have they would stand a chance to proceed and vie for these positions. But such has not been the case, and therefore this is something that has raised lots of challenges. It is the conversation that we'll be having this morning, and of course the biggest challenge coming from members of county assemblies who argue that such should not be a requirement, but there are equal others that think that such should be a requirement. And so today we engage individuals in the society that are of the idea and others that are against the idea. Currently we are talking about around 416 members, that is both at the Senate and of course the National Assembly, and about 1,450 MCAs, those that are elected, not nominated, and it is difficult to tell who, of course, in them holds a degree or not. Some, who've been told, have degrees that are fake. Well, it's a question of wait and see as the conversation is heated. We are headed to an election hearing period. IEBC the other day said, or just reminded, that anyone who would wish to contend or to proceed and, give their interest on standing for a certain position should be reminded that they should hold a degree for them to be cleared. Is it something that holds water? Lots of conversation rising. Senators arguing on the same, members of parliament debating on the same, some saying it should be a requirement, some arguing that there are a couple of other things that should be looked into. Maybe just put a requirement of a diploma and a certificate, put a requirement of English and Kiswahili or any other language that someone can speak that is viable in the country, and so much more. So let's get into this discussion as we ponder and get to understand some more as to why people, or some people, are for the idea and others are not for the same. It's going to be quite an interesting conversation. I welcome you to be part and parcel of it. Quite a lengthy introduction to the same, just so we are all in the same picture. Eric Geshuki, MCA, Viwandani ward, that is in Naivasha sub-county, is with us this morning. We also have the MCA of Naivasha East, that is in Naivasha sub-county, Honorable Stanley Karanja, is with me in studio as well. And we'll be also having other individuals, Honorable Peter Mbai, MCA Kabazi ward in Nakuru. We'll be having Jennifer Nyaga, former MCA Kirinyaga, joining us. We'll be having, so many of them also joining us. And people in the business fraternity. We have Wanjiko this morning. I'll be introducing her later on once she hits the set. And also another guest, Awene, who will also be telling us their view on the same. We also are looking forward to have a businessman in the name of course, JM of Solicitor General to also give us his argument on the same. So make sure that you're part of this conversation, as I have said, because it is crucial that we all understand what really we seek on matters leadership when we're going out there to cast the vote. But before we get to that, gentlemen, I guess I'll use the two gentlemen in studio to help us touch on the 2-3 stories that are different on the newspaper before we get to that conversation, as we also set the rest of the guests who will be on the other side of a studio. And so Standard Newspaper, Daily Nation, and the People Daily are the papers that we have this morning, gentlemen. And the front pages, of course, they speak of the conversation on matters BBI and how the cases proceeded yesterday, or the proceedings at the level of the Court of Appeal were yesterday. I don't know what you make of it. It's still a conversation that is on, goes all the way up until tomorrow, as we seek to understand what then the Court of Appeal will deliberate, whether they will quash what it is that the High Court spoke about, or they will consider it otherwise. Gentlemen, you don't, who wants to go first? Stanley then. All right. Okay. Now that you're close to me.
Yes, okay. First of all, let me start by greeting the audience who are watching us today. And I think as the case goes, it now depends with the acumen of the lawyers. If the lawyers are so good, then they will convince the judges. And because each and every person has his own or her take, then it is a matter of facts that will play in the court. Also, you know that different lawyers have different experience. So also the issue of experience will really play in this case. It will really play.
All right.
Yes, very well. So I also want to say a very good morning to the viewers, people of Naivasha in general. Usually for us, we say that matters in court are matters in court. We don't discuss matters in court.
Yeah.
But from what I see, basically, I think we are headed to the Supreme Court.
Is it so?
Take my word to the bank. We are headed to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
Based on the submissions I saw yesterday, and based on what we received yesterday from the lawyers, I want to believe that what they actually presented holds water. I want to believe that, first of all, the first claim was that promoters of the BBI were the president and the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. And I want to believe that from what I heard yesterday, I want to believe that the High Court was very partial. The High Court was very partial, and I also want to believe that the High Court did not actually overextended, it overreached its mandate. Yeah. So basically, let's see how it goes, but I believe that we are headed to the Supreme Court.
All right, we are eagerly waiting to see what plays out on matters education. Can't pay, won't pay. TSC says it has no funds for teachers' salary increment. Well, we have a new face at the union, the main union, that is NAT. And I mean, we've also seen the union leaders coming out to push TSC to look into this review.
This is a case that, I was formerly a teacher, and I know how TSC has really mistreated the teachers. Anytime we went to, anytime there was a tussle between the union and the employer, always the employer uses the hand of the government to muscle the unions. Therefore, we will see what really happens. And I know that with now the exit of Socioni, I think now the only good thing is for them to negotiate. And negotiate in a sober mind, not making sure that teachers are now the grass. If the war continues, Teachers will continue some. And remember, teachers have not that much money, so that they keep on. So we are waiting to see what the NAT will bring and what Puppet also brings on the table. But we are still waiting, and we are going to see.
All
but
right.
I'm telling you that these ladies in the TSE, they are not a joke. They have really muzzled the teachers.
All right.
Yeah, I was a teacher, and I know. I speak on behalf of the teacher, and I know that the TSE is one of the most dictatorial, and you know, it is of respect of no man.
Yeah.
This TSE, unless now we have a sober person and a tough one to face the tough ladies.
All right. Well, it appears that politics has more money than than this other side of matters education. Is it so?
Not exactly. What normally happens is a calling and a service. You know, I was fetched out of classroom by people from Naivasha East. Therefore, whatever I'm talking about, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
All right.
But I know that the teachers are in a tough corner.
Okay, well, that one, we'll leave it at that. And I mean, we can only wait to see what TSE will do in regards to the same other case story that's captured Gesheru case, Karim Khan, that is in regards to matters ICC, yes. But this one, I'd love for you, Mheshimiwa, to touch on Kenyans innovate for lack of jobs. And also that is a story captured on the front page of the Standard newspaper. And one that would relate to the same, the tax burden, airtime and internet costs expected to increase as members of parliament propose higher taxes. That has been captured on the front page of the Standard of the Daily Nation and expounded on page 12. It is not all rosy for Wanjiku, to be honest.
It's true, yeah, and times are really tough. They're only getting tougher. I remember some time back I did an interview with the Standard, and one said, on the interview, it came out that one of the major issues we're having in Kenya is the overtaxation issue. You go reach out and try to expand the bracket where you tax people, but then again, in expanding the bracket, you touch the most simple and the most basic forms of livelihoods. And I want to believe that taxing as far as airtime and stuff like that, then again goes a little way deeper into the pockets of Mwananchi.
Right.
So I believe that instead of working towards making our economy better, we're working against our economy, in the sense that we actually dig deeper into the pockets of Mwananchi, whereas the income remains the same. So basically, for me, I don't think it's the right thing to do. Our country should be more geared towards towards industry, towards exportation. I want to believe increasing our GDP helps a little more than overtaxing the
common Mwananchi. Yes. That's true. And as we come to a close on maybe on the papers, PS made millions, or MPs, sorry, made millions from fictitious mileage claims. That's a story captured on the Standard newspaper, page 8. And I'll couple this with the ministry and how the ministry lost about 1.8 billion to non-existent students, and that has been well articulated right there. And a couple of numerous other cases of graft. There's also one on Honorable, of course, Rigathi Gachagua in regards to matters graft. Just what can it take for us to be able to deal with matters graft in the country? Honorable Stanley.
The issue of corruption, I think now it has been politicized. And I think when you touch somebody, then somebody will start saying that I am being targeted because maybe in yes, you see, that's now the problem that we are facing. But unless the DCI and the institutions that are mandated to do cases of corruption are neutral and seem to be neutral, this issue of corruption, I don't see it being fought in a fair manner. And also maybe to comment on this issue of also taxation.
Right.
You see, people are forgetting that now internet is now a tool of trade. You cannot do business without internet, without airtime. Therefore, anytime you add any money or any taxation to either airtime or internet, you are killing the small business person. That is it. And I think the MPs have not realized how internet and maybe airtime, addition of airtime, will affect the common man. That is the problem that we are having.
That's true. Well,
Yes.
the bigger picture, and I think I started by saying that should be the biggest worry, that most of the people are now transacting business in the eco space. And to be honest, a majority of Kenyans have resolved to take that direction because that's where it appears money is, and therefore burdening them even more on this other space is one thing that is certainly not going to be received well. Let's not delve deep into this because we are almost getting to 7 a.m. and it's important that we engage on this conversation. I don't know how many guests we have on the other side. I am yet to be advised accordingly, and once I am aware of the same, then we'll be able to proceed and have this candid discussion. But to kickstart the conversation, I'd love to hear the position of the members of County Assembly in studio right now with me, and that is, like I said, Honorable Eric and Honorable Stanley. What position do you take? I would probably say that I understand the position of Honorable Stanley, and I'd want to assume that such is the case across Naivasha. I don't know, mbona mmependa masomo namna hii? You all are in agreement, or somehow are in agreement, and you are very hard on this particular stand that a degree is really important. Is it because you are a teacher, Honorable Stanley?
Not exactly. If you want to know exactly why education is important, you just need to go to the Constitution. In actual sense, this is a debate that has been closed. You have to check what the Constitution says on the qualification of MPs, what the Constitution says on the qualification of members of Parliament, and what the Constitution states on the qualification of senators. Right. If, for example, one now goes to the qualification for even if you start with that of a governor, you go to election. If you check clearly and you check Elections Act, and then you check what do we require for a governor to be a governor, you just go to the Constitution and check. If you check 180, for example, right. If you check 180 and you check 2, to be eligible for an election as a county governor, a person must be eligible for election as a member of county assembly. Therefore, even the governors and the governor and the deputy governor must, first of all, be eligible to be members of the county assembly. And that means when we pegged the qualification of a governor to that of a degree, then you need exactly to go to see what exactly are the qualifications of a governor, so that the governor qualifies to be a member of a county assembly. Therefore, when we pegged it at a degree, then it is automatic that a member of county assembly must have an equivalent educational qualification as that of a governor. Therefore, that is my take. Okay. That the Constitution is very clear that for you to be a governor, you must qualify to be an MCA. For you to be a governor, you must have a degree. Okay. And because that the Constitution says so, it was Parliament that was late in legislating the qualifications of both the members of county assembly, both the parliamentarians and senators. The second thing is that for you, first of all, to know what should I do to be a member of county assembly, or to be able to be a member of the Senate, then you must first of all check the roles. What are the roles of a member of county assembly? One, there is oversight. What do you oversight? What normally happens is that we start by having a budget. If you cannot be able to interpret the budget, definitely you cannot be able to oversight. What
interesting. All right, I'd love to hear your position, Honorable Eric, before I put up my question.
Perfect. So for me, it's very simple. I'll just go straight to the Act. This is an Election Act of 2011, number 24 of 2011. And in the Act, it categorically says that this is an Act of Parliament that provides for the conduct of election to the office of the President, the Senator, the Governor, the Members of Parliament, as well as the county assemblies. It also says that it provides for the conduction of the referenda, election resolution disputes, and related concerns. Yep. So ideally, let us not just focus on this one thing. And I want to remind people that this is not an overnight law. This is not an overnight legislation that it happened yesterday and people got ambushed. This dates back to 2011. And actually, you'll get to realize that back in 2012, it was first deferred. Yes. That is a year to the election. 2016, it was then again deferred. Right. That's another year to election. So why are we having this conversation a year to election? So ideally, what we do is defer this law every penultimate year to the election. So basically, it is not something that is that is just like a surprise to the people of Kenya. It is something we actually knew. And to the surprise of most of the MCAs who are currently sitting had this conversation in 2016.
Right.
Yeah? So we are actually having it just right before the election. So basically for me, I want to believe, let the law be the law. If the law says that this is the mandatory requirement, the qualification, the academic qualification requirement, let it be so.
Picture
me,
this, one individual has already been elected into power and they didn't have a degree.
Yeah.
And then it comes to the realization that they do not have a degree. If the people are satisfied with what it is that this person has done for them and they would want to re-elect them, what happens in such a scenario?
Well, I want to imagine that I am very glad you said that this person is in office at the moment. And if he's in office at the moment, that means that he's well aware of the law.
Yes.
And the law categorically says, by the time, and in fact, I want to take you back to Article 22 of the same Election Act. It says, Part 2, it says that this law takes full force and shall apply elections after 2017.
That's true.
So every other person in office currently, doesn't matter how well your performance has been, is well in the know of the importance of a degree, especially for the Member of Parliament.
You are privy to what it is that the Constitution speaks of on matters public interest. And therefore, I would want to believe if a people are satisfied by the leadership of a certain leader and they'd want to have them back again, despite the fact that they do not have a degree, it is only fair that there is a consideration as to what then is the interest of the public.
Linda,
yes.
Let me tell you. This law, as Erica has said, it was there way back, 2011. Therefore, if I'm a member of a county assembly, I should have invested in that education. For example, somebody was elected in 2017. You decided to buy land, to invest on land. You decided to invest on some economic gaining aspect. And yet you knew very well that you are supposed to have that qualification. Why lower the bar? Because you have just come closer to it. And yet you knew very well that this is the minimum entry behavior for a member of parliament. This is the minimum entry behavior for a member of the
County Assembly.
Parliament. And then let us not lose the cardinal.
Now, who is to blame in this case? Hold it right there.
No.
And now that we have Honorable Mbaye, that is the MCA of Kabazi Ward, Nakuru, on standby, joining us virtually. And also we have Honorable Jennifer, I'll call her Honorable because, well, she has been a member of County Assembly before, Jennifer Nyaga, who's also on standby. I think it is only fair that we loop them into the discussion. First, get to know their position on this, and then delve deep into understanding who then is to blame. If a member of parliament or an MCA, presented their interest to the IEBC, presented their papers, and their papers were given, of course, that clean bill of health, why is it then do you come to counter this? Why is it then that they should bear the brand? Yet IEBC is also well privy to what it is that the law dictates. And interestingly, when adjustments are made, as the members of County Assembly have rightfully put it, these adjustments are also, procedurally made. In this sense, of course, we've seen them proceeding to the government or to the president to say, let's counter this, let's, edit this for a moment until a certain period. And therefore, it could be justified for them to take that direction. Honorable Jennifer, how are you? Karibu sana. All right, there we go. What is your position?
Okay, my position, I support the degree education qualification because we need to understand from where we are coming from. The law did not just come into place. In 2010, when you are making the constitution, when there was the committee of experts going around, the Wanjiko said that they need some leaders with a form of education. Only that the constitution, when they were writing it, they left that article and give it the parliament, the power of the parliament to make law. For a leader, what you need to do, when you are a leader, you need to plan ahead in case of any eventuality.
Right.
So what happens if you were elected in 2012 without a degree, you had to go back to school. If you had the Form 4 education qualification, do a diploma or start in a degree. We cannot say all the time the law should be progressing going forward, not retrogressive, going backwards. So I think I support the education qualification because, as my colleagues have said, the works of the members of the county assembly is to oversight, legislate, and budget making. How do you oversight if you do not understand and you are able to interpret the rules? How do you make the budget? How do you interrogate the budget from executive if you cannot understand?
Let's be honest for a moment. Let's be honest for a moment. And I am not on this other side. I'm just trying to ask on behalf of the common mwananchi, just how many of them that are representing us are practically using the degree that they acquired to, you know, make sure that they look into these mandates that are, you know, the mandates that have been given to them by the Constitution. I mean, speak of oversight, speak of budgeting, speak of, you know, coming in to legislate, and a couple of other things. Honestly speaking, how then do you make sure that your degree works to make sure that you're able to competently deliver this? Still on you.
Okay, what you have to make, even if you look at the National Assembly, the chairman who was there for the budget, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, he was not a member who was privy to the finances of the how you make the finances, the financial accounting. How could he have been doing the budgeting? Let's say we just took a person who is a lay person from the class for all.
And I mean, that's the reason why the committees, in most cases, so much is put in thought to make sure that the members that you get to the committee or the leaders that you get at the level of the committee are leaders that well understand, you know, this particular sector that they're supposed to focus on.
Yes, and that's why if the other members do not have qualification, if I elect a member from my place who does not have qualification, will that member be able to sit in those powerful committees in the House? That person will not be able to sit in the powerful committees in the House.
Coincidentally, I'm sorry, I'm cutting you short. Coincidentally, well, this is almost impossible. But in the event that you have all the members of parliament that have gotten there, you know, probably a majority having degrees to do with matters of medicine, then who's going to oversight on this other side? Who's going to sit on these other committees that speak of matters of money, budgeting, and other sectors and other issues?
But having that degree, it's that you are able to understand, you are able to interpret. It is not just because you are a lawyer, you can only deal with matters in law. You can also deal with matters in finances, because when you are doing that degrees, you have some courses that you have been taught on the matters of the accounting, you have been taught of the matters of the communication. And to be a leader, you have to inspire other people. And when you're inspiring people, you cannot say that we have the small kids who are looking on to us, the leaders. When you look at the debate in the National Assembly, even in the county assembly, you'll be able to understand that those people who have even that higher education level, their debate cannot match others. And even you look, there was the overall county 47 county award. If you look at those people who scooped those awards, most of them, they had the degree level.
All right.
So we'd say that that one matters. How do you go and discuss those things with a person who has never gone out of school and who has never even interpreted some of these, though? Because
and hold it, let me cut you short. And maybe diploma would not work. A person who's gotten to the level of Form 4 would not work. Well, let's loop in Honorable Peter Mbaye, MCA Kabazi, joining us virtually. Good morning, Mhesh.
Good morning.
How are you?
Very well.
Your position on this?
I hold it that you don't need necessarily a degree to be a good leader. We have a lot of confusion, and I want to start by saying the Constitution does not talk about a degree. The Constitution talks about that the Parliament shall put in place requirements for educational requirements to be able to vie. Let Kenyans know very clearly.
Yes.
There's nothing in the Constitution that says that one must have a degree.
But there's a point where the Parliament passed the law that MCAs and MPs themselves should have that. That is in 2011.
Exactly. In 2011, I agree.
Yes. They were given that mandate, and true to it, they proceeded to say that such is the direction that we should take. As we fix this,
Exactly.
yes?
I agree with you on that one. So let it be very clear so that Kenyans know it is an act of parliament that talks about a decree post 2017. Now, this is what we are saying. Let's agree here on the some issues on confusion that are coming around this matter. Number one, when you talk about a degree, which degree? You see, let's not remove confusion. Let us not bring more confusion to this issue. Now, when you want to study, when you want to be a teacher, you go to a teacher's training college so that you can become a teacher. Well, if you want to practice medicine, you do the same. Now, here you are told a degree. That is even more confusion because you'll end up getting people who are engineers to come and purport to be political leaders, and they don't have the drive and the passion for politics. So, my proposition is there are some, what we should be putting more emphasis on is the capacity, the wisdom, the calling, the passion. That is number one. Now, education is important, very important. It comes to add knowledge to the calling and that passion that you have. It comes, but it is not primary. Education is not primary. Now, I want to give you examples. There are some people, members of parliament, there are some people, the members of the county assembly, who have relatively learned their wards or constituencies very well. Now, they don't have degrees, but they have some capacity, some calling, some passion, some kind of, that passion for the people. So, to me, education is very good. For me, I went through University of Nairobi. I did political science. I did philosophy. I did a master's in communication. I have a PhD. Yes, and I can tell you my word. They have seen how they have benefited from my education on top of my calling and passion. Because you have some PhD holders, you have some master's holders, some degree holders
that have failed us.
Political leaders.
Honorable Stanley would love to counter that. Make it brief so we can engage Wanjiku on the other side.
We do not need to mislead the public on this one. The Constitution is very clear. If you go to Article 193B, it says that it is the role of Parliament. That's the Constitution.
Yes.
It is the role of Parliament that says what is the threshold of one to become a member of Parliament.
But is it not the same Parliament that has been countering this after they realize that this does not work in favor of them?
It's not them. It's not them. If it was them, they could not have passed that law unanimously.
Okay.
But now, what the doctor is saying, remember, doctor is saying that he is a degree holder. He is telling us he has a master's. He is telling us he has a PhD. He is telling us that the ground, the Wanjiku that he is representing, is very comfortable with that one. Why does the doctor now want somebody who is not learned to come and face him?
Hold it, Honorable Stanley. Eric, before we come to, yes.
The problem we are facing is this, that those people who are learned in the assemblies do not want others who can be able to challenge them in terms of legislation.
All right.
He wants, because of that ego, he wants that I am a PhD holder because I'm Dr. Bai.
Right.
And therefore, any other person now who comes and he is the two dropouts, we'll always listen to a PhD
trampling on them.
That is the problem we are having.
But again, like Honorable Jennifer said, it is important.
I have a major problem with that insinuation. I have a big problem. All what I'm saying is this. We cannot legislate about leadership. All what we are saying is this. Every year, after every 5 years, Wanjiku kicks off 70% of the people that she elected the previous years. Let us give Wanjiku the chance to weed out, to see the people that she considers are not good leaders. Let me tell you, according to the Constitution in the Bill of Rights, it is against the Constitution to discriminate somebody on the basis that they didn't go to school.
Hold it. Mheshimiwa, hold it. I think it's only fair that we loop in Wanjiku, who is also on standby. He's been waiting, and we get to hear their view. We have Roslyn Wanjiku, who's on the other side of the studio. He's a business lady and also a business person who's the CEO, Solicitor General, JM. I call him JM. Good morning. Mnanisikia? We're not able to hear JM and Wanjiku or Shiku. All right. Okay, before we come back to them, allow Eric to come in because we put him on the side for quite a while. Yes.
Thank you, Linda. Allow me to say something, Linda. It's very, very unfortunate and it's very, very erratic for Dr. Rimbai to talk about 70% of the leaders being kicked out every 5 years. Let me remind Daktari that back in 2017, as he was submitting his papers for qualification for IBC, he so happened to have presented his KCSE certificate. And so that it follows that every single election we hold has academic qualifications. That is a factor that's there. There is academic qualification. Now what's happened is the bar has been raised a little higher. Well, probably I will have reservations for the member of county assembly. Maybe for member of county assembly, the law is a little bit local. But for member of parliament, that has to be a mandatory requirement. To be a degree holder has to be a mandatory requirement. Allow me to say this, Linda.
Yes.
The roles of an MCA mirror to those of an MP. Our roles are oversight, representation, and legislation. Two of these require critical thinking. Number one being legislation. We only speak to the nation if we legislate properly. We only are good to the nation if we legislate properly. And Linda, allow me to say that most of the people that tend to legislate in this current our current term, you will find that the quality of debate is a little wanting.
Honestly, the quality of debate is wanting. That is one of the reasons why there's this debate that we're having today. And I mean, especially at the National Assembly, that is one thing that has been raised hugely. Before we even allow you to...
Yeah, allow me to say this, Linda.
Make it brief.
Yeah, okay. For the longest time, I've had people throw a lot of shade to the president and say that the prices of coffee, the prices of tea, especially from the area I come from. And sadly, the person who got to legislate that law is not even a person from the mountain. Now, there's a tea bill which was legislated by one Honorable Aaron Cheriot, who comes from Kericho. And I'll tell you this, Linda, most of the people have seemed to take an angle towards saying that the president has been a little bit inconsiderate of his people, whereas where we needed to make real effort and where we needed to make real progress was in the parliament. So if you have yourself good lawmakers, then it translates to better living for
and
our
so
people.
therefore good lawmakers is one thing that would be gauged on the level of education.
Of course.
That the level of debate, when it goes down, it is a problem of the fact that these members of parliament are not learned or maybe do not have degrees. It's something that is still debatable again. Let's loop in Wanjiko on the other side. Wanjiko is there, and pardon me on this, I'm told it's Simon Awene, founder Slam Story, that is there on the other side. JM is yet to join us. So Wanjiko and Simon, hamjamboni?
Hatujambo, Linda.
Mko poa, eh?
Tuko salama, tunashukuru.
All right, debate mnaisikia?
Yeah, it's good, tunaisikia.
All right, labda nisikie your views on this. Do you stand on the side that yes, indeed, it's important that we have, representatives that hold degrees or not? Tuanze na Wanjiko.
For me, I partially agree, but there's some question I want to ask our readers. Like we had our former president Moi. Na which degree Moi alikuwa nayo that ilimfanya lead this country all those years. In our constituency Kiambaa, we had Njenga Karume, and those people did very well. Now we didn't hear about their degrees or masters or whatever. Then now, I don't think the leadership we have, it is in our hand. Now leadership is something which is in you. Even if you can, then when we are looking about this leadership, your degree, we look at the people we have. Which degree specifically? Because when you go there in parliament, in our people here, there is political science, there is so many things in budget, lawyer. That means we are looking on lawyers to be members of parliament. We are looking for political science degrees for these people to guide this country or to lead this country. Yeah.
All right. Well, interesting views right there. Simon.
Yes, Linda. I think my opinion is first we have to define leadership. I think how I understand leadership, I can define leadership as an education to transform lives with so many skills. Education, that is commitment and communication skills. But now we have some leaders in the county assembly at the moment with degrees, but they lack commitment to the common mwananchi on the ground. Yes, they debate well, they debate issues, and that one now turns into cartels and conmanship in the House, where they threaten governors on issues that we are going to debate on ABCDs, so that the governor can take them to trips and all those things. I think if we are going to talk about, I agree that some level of education is required, minimum, but not necessarily a degree. May I ask a question? What values, apart from the standards of debates in the House, is the degree going to add to the common mwananchi? Are they going to debate the real issues on the ground with those degrees, or they're just going to, it's going to turn into maintenance of status quo, and you can call it?
Well, thank you. Nice points raised there.
Yes, they are good.
Jennifer is on standby. Can we have Jennifer first, then come back to you? Jennifer, valid points raised there with, case studies, pinpointing President, that is retired President, may his soul rest in eternal peace, Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, key leaders in society. And you can look across the world, you'll find that there are leaders that have been there for the longest of time that really did not acquire some of these. And like you say, a majority of them have decided that they're not going to match up, and therefore they will not proceed to even get these degrees, because to them, leadership is way beyond that.
Okay, I'll agree and disagree. We always said when we are coming, we know we need to understand where we are coming from. If you look from when we gained independence in 1963, education was new to us. And you cannot say that Moi, by then, he was a teacher. That time we didn't even have universities around. We only had like one in Makerere, and most of the people who were running that time, they had to go all the way to Uganda. Even the founding president, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, was a degree, had some level of education. He studied in UK, and he was even able to write some books. When you say about our late President Moi, he read us for about 24 years. He was not a degree holder, but by then, how many universities did we have in Kenya? We had like 2 universities or 3. We were trying to learn, we were trying to grow. Does it mean we don't need to learn from where we are coming from? And when we made this constitution, if you read the committee of experts, the report of the committee of experts, the Wajiko themselves said they need some leaders who have knowledge and understanding. Why do we say we need that? You remember in 1982, we all said that the people who were pushing for the amendment of the constitution for the repeal of Article 92 to allow the multipartyism, tell me a leader who there was who had no degree. We had Orengo, we had Anyang' Nyong'o, we had Kiraitu Murungi, we had Martha Karua, we had Reverend Joya. Those caliber of people pushed for us that we are able to amend the constitution and have multipartyism. So we say education is good. On the other question that was asked about, we have so many degrees in the House of Parliament. That's why we all make the degrees from RAD, environment, welfares of our children. And even if you look at the most people who have contributed very critically laws, when you look at the Children Act, Jo Kindongo contributed in writing that Children Act. She's a lawyer. We needed that. If there was somebody who was nominated who has done something, we can see when always we are quoting about Children Act, we will always remember Lady Justice Jo Kindongo. If she did not have the same kind of degree, could you be having it? When we look at the Constitution, we always quote Kina Orengo and say these people are lawyers. If we want to amend, we make the policies. We need to interpret these policies. You cannot say that as a Wanjiko, if I'm a leader, I need to interpret the policies to the Wanjiko what have meant.
Hold it. Let's allow the other gentleman to come in. And we just look at the face of Uganda. We look at the face of the United Kingdom. We look at the face of Tanzania on the other side. We look at countries like Ghana that are also having the current such a debate currently as it is. Have they not been able to address these issues that Jennifer is articulating, Honorable Stanley?
Thank you very much. Even before we head to that, there is something that the doctor said about the Bill of Rights, that it is that if we peg the educational qualification, then we are discriminating people against the Bill of Rights. And then I ask myself, the governors and the deputy governors have degrees. Okay. Are they not part of that Bill of Rights? Yeah. The president and the deputy president are required by law to have a degree. Does it mean that the Bill of Rights is only applying when it comes to other cadres? Okay. That's why we are saying that the more informed somebody is, the more they can be able to mislead others. Mm-hmm. And that's why we need to be very critical and aware. Number two, we need to ask ourselves, and that's what I started by saying. MCAs are supposed to go and vet the CECs. CECs are in charge and head of department. Yeah. They are the ones who make policies. And therefore, when they are coming in, their entry behavior to be a CEC, you must have that minimum educational qualification. And of course, if at all you are a finance CEC, then you must have that degree. And that's why we are saying, can you imagine a standard 2 dropout or a standard 8 or any other, and then this is somebody who is supposed to vet a PhD who is a CEC? You see now the irony.
Sorry, will it not be so hard for someone to even oversight on you? Mm-hmm. Let's say you are at the level of, maybe you are the CS, you are a CS, maybe you are a governor, and therefore your legislators or the members of county assembly are at that particular level. Don't you think it will be very hard for them to put you down, for them to get answers from you, with the kind of education or the level of education that you hold today?
Linda, and I want to say this, and by the way, Linda, I'm not at all trying to underestimate the power of education and why it has to be there. But please, Linda, I just want to say one specific thing on this debate. Yeah. That we want this issue of education to take place progressively. What we are saying, we cannot, and that's why, Linda, this law has faced headwinds since 2013. Because there are people, the whole mix-up and the parameters of Kenyan political leadership is not what you would call a public office, where you are vetted, you are given a job, and you're going to retire at 60 years. This is a state officer job. This is a contract job, where the people who give you the job is not the appointed authority, it is the Wanjiko. So when they feel you are not able to do this, and so I'm saying this, Linda, kindly, I am just saying that let us not legislate about leadership. Leadership is deeper than education and papers. It is okay to have education, but what is number one is the calling and the passion. Then education comes as second. Let's not make education number one. So what are we saying? For example, I have no problem. I agree. There are issues, there are challenges, but if you look at it, Linda, the quality of leadership MCAs that we had 2013, most of them were ex-councillors. But there was a difference of change in 2017. And mark my words, Linda, when you're talking about this in September next year, you are going to appreciate the progressive nature of the quality of leadership from MCAs who are going to be in our county assemblies and even the National Assembly. Mm-hmm. So my point is, therefore, I wouldn't want, a leader is unfair. I got a chance myself to go through school. I wouldn't want to kick off competition from from the position I'm going to vie in 2022, the parliamentary seat in Subukia, and shed off all the other people just because they didn't go back to school. Why did they come? In 2017, leader, I had a master's degree. I went to Kabasi as an MCA. I beat other people who are so many from 4 and all that, respectively. I beat them up because I was able to sell my manifesto. Yeah. I was able to go and convince people, look here, I'm here, son. I'm back here. I've been all the way there. I've come back to come and help you. And they took it up. Right now, I don't want to shed off competition just because of education. Why, Linda, can't we be talking about passion, about commitment, about focus, about what we want to do for Wanjiko, and then naturally Wanjiko will sieve us out. Wanjiko knows she's living to obviously right now.
I think it's only fair that we allow.
Something that I was not doing.
Let's make our points brief so that we can allow all of us to get.
Linda, let me finish this. Linda, I want to make it very clear.
Right.
It is not to say I normally use my education in the Nakuru County Assembly to look down upon the others. Actually, that's what Stanley does. He speaks throughout and makes sure that everybody else who doesn't seem like he went to school, he has no chance of speaking in the county
Stanley is
assembly.
here. Stanley is here, right to defend himself. No, Stanley.
I was not very clear there.
Yes.
I was not through. That's exactly what he does.
We need to be fair. You see, Stanley, we need to be fair. All right, Mheshimiwa, we come back to you in a few. You better make it 30 seconds.
Look at the constitution. All constitutional created offices, they have a minimum entry behavior. The National Assembly is the creator of the constitution. Any constitutional office that he is talking about has an entry behavior. Therefore, it is very erroneous. In actual sense, what we should be discussing is what should be the entry behavior of an MCA. Should it be a diploma or a degree? But not to rubbish it. That you need somebody, and he is telling you very critically that he beat the Form 4s. He beat everything. If you beat them, why did you beat them? He beat them because of that education and acumen.
Do we take a break? Do we take a break or we proceed? I need to be advised. I need to be advised before I allow Eric to come in. Before I allow to Eric a man. All right, Eric, join in.
Thank you very much. In our assembly, sadly, we have two very heated factions. There's Karanja's faction, there's Mbai's faction. So this is usually in our assembly. Now, allow me to say this, Linda, and I'll say this in all honesty. Your constitution, Article 43.
Yes.
There's the rights, the economic and social rights. If you read through it, it says of the right to education. Now, education is not a privilege anymore after the 2010 Constitution. Education is a right.
But you also agree that we have so much difficulties, and that is one point I wanted to raise. That in as much as there are many who would wish to have, attain that level of a degree, it is very hard for them to do that in the country today.
Well, that could be true. However, allow me to say this, Linda, that leadership is just not leadership. Having education is an X factor. There are very many leaders, even if there was a leader and there was someone else who's a leader. And I'll take three countries for an example. I'll take Kenya, the countries you talked about. Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. Look at the forefathers. Look at the founding fathers of this country.
Right.
There's Kenyatta, the late Mzee Kenyatta. There's Tom Mboya. There's Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, and a lot more. Look at Tanzania. There's Mwalimu Nyerere. Yeah, all these are very educated, well-lettered people. Now look at Uganda. What do you have to say about Uganda?
Is it not functioning as a country?
No. What do you have to say about Uganda?
That is for the rest of the people. Gentlemen, Eric, let's take a short break. No. Gentlemen, we have to have some decorum. We have to have some decorum so at least everyone is able to hear that. And on that note, I think I take a short break to cool up the temperatures for a moment. We come back to you, Eric.
Munisikize. Kwanza nataka kusema jambo moja. Tumepata mgeni ambaye anaitwa Beatrice, ameingia kwenye kikundi hiki. Mnafurahia? Huyu ndio dada Beatrice. Japo kwa kuna mama tu mmoja anaitwa What? Elvis, come here.
Washer Ultra Detergent, unlike your ordinary washing powder, is formulated with 3D enzyme action designed to remove stain, kill germs, and make your laundry super clean. With ultra concentration for that one handful wash, plus a smooth fragrance to put a smile on your face.
Kuna uchafu kwenye nguo zangu, ninashindwa nitafanya vipi? Kuna suluhisho moja ya ajabu, na ni nini kama siwosha?
Hey, baby. I thought leo ni chama. Nini inaendelea?
Washa Ultra ina nguvu mara 3 ya kupambana na kila uchafu. Washa Ultra ni sabuni ya ajabu.
Old Stories.
In studio with me, Eric Geshoki, MCA Viwandani, Honorable Stanley Karanja, MCA Naivasha East. Joining us virtually is Honorable Dr. Peter Mbai, MCA Kabazi, and we also have in studio with me Jennifer Nyaga, former MCA Kirinyaga. The other side of the studio, we have Roslyn Wanjiko, who's a business lady, and founder Slum Story Kenya, Simon Awene. Before we come to you, Honorable Eric,